Welcome to Nacrius Cloud Academy, a journey to pinnacle of success. In this video, we are going to learn Agile project development methodology and Scrum best practices, along with understanding the 5 Scrum ceremonies. Before proceeding with the actual content of what is Agile development, let's understand why Agile came into existence. In the initial days of IT project development, many IT companies were following something called as waterfall model, which was also referred to as linear sequential lifecycle model. As the name suggests, it was a sequential process where each phase must be completed before the next phase can begin. Kind of how water flows from one step to another and can't skip any of them while flowing downwards, and neither it can go back to any of the previous step. Rather, it's very difficult to make the water flow in reverse direction or the direction of your choice. It is always sequential in nature. Similarly, in the project development, team had to follow a particular process and every phase need to be completed before proceeding to the next phase. In this approach, the requirements were supposed to be locked at a very initial stage at the start of the project. There was little to no scope of changing the requirements during the project development phase. As the industry evolved, there were a lot of innovations coming in and customers' requirements were changing frequently, leading to a lot of challenges in getting them addressed with this sequential way of project development. Hence, there was a strong need for change from this traditional way of developing projects, which gave rise to what is called as Agile project development methodology. Agile development is an incremental and iterative software development methodology which allowed teams to break the entire project into smaller chunks and develop and deliver only that piece of information. This allowed developers to focus on continuous releases and incorporate customer feedback with every iteration of software development lifecycle. To bring a bit more clarity on the above concepts, let's take an example. Imagine that in your academic year you have 10 chapters to complete in order to pass the final exam to clear that year. Now, if you are taught all the 10 chapters and exams were conducted at the end to check your knowledge, there are chances that you might have missed few concepts in each chapter and might end up failing in the final exam. In that, it's very difficult for you to go back and start the academic year again. Alternatively, if the tests were conducted after each chapter, then you would know where you stand and what you are lagging so that you can correct it well within the time, and your chances of passing the final exam are very high when compared to earlier case. Same case was happening with waterfall model. If during the requirement phase all requirements were not captured completely, then the end product that was being developed or delivered to customer would not meet the passing criteria or may result in rejection of the project by the customer at the very end of the project. Rather, if the project was broken into smaller chunks and was continuously developed and delivered to customer and take their feedback and incorporate same in the projects, then chances are less that customer will reject the end completed product. That is the reason why Agile project development is being followed widely in IT companies now. Now that we have understood why Agile is important, let's understand the most widely used methods of implementing Agile, that is Scrum. So what is Scrum? Scrum is one of the methods of framework used to implement agility in your project development. It is a principle to be able to modify the direction taken by the project as it progresses. Entire project is broken down into smaller pieces called sprints. Sprints are the events of fixed duration, usually for a week or 2 weeks, during which the team focuses on goal of development and delivery that adds value to the product. To begin working in Scrum, we need to first form a Scrum team which consists of the following roles. First one, the product owner. He or she is the voice of a customer and a person who translates customers' requirements and has the vision of the project and the product. Second is Scrum Master. He is a person who is aware of Scrum methodology and guarantees that team follows the Scrum principles without deviation. He acts as a coach and director for team to implement the Scrum framework in the project and help the team to be productive. Third are the developers. They are the team members who work on development of the product in incremental way. The term developers is broadly used here and does not mean they are only the developers writing the code. This team will have software developers, product analysts, architects, and quality analysts. It is basically a mix of all skill sets required to deliver the product. But each one of them are categorized as developers in the Scrum framework. In addition to Scrum team, there are stakeholders who are people interested in the work being carried out by the Scrum team. They are basically users, customers, investors, project managers, etc. These stakeholders need to be updated on a regular basis but are not part of the Scrum team described above. To track the progress of various tasks or features to be delivered, most of the companies use Jira issues and project tracking software. I'll be taking a detailed session on this tool later during the course. Now let's understand how the projects are executed using Scrum framework along with the Scrum ceremonies to be followed. It all starts with the project initiation where product owner and stakeholders captures all the features required to be delivered in the form of product backlog in Jira, which will be owned and maintained by the product owner during the project planning and execution phases. This product backlog will have a list of all the features that the team need to develop and are assigned with priorities by the product owner. Basically, product owner has ownership on the product backlog and can change the priorities of the task based on business requirements and demands. Based on the features that are to be developed, team's calendar is broken down into fixed term work cycle of 1 month or less, that is called a sprint. A sprint can be of 1 week, 2 weeks or a month depending on the deliverables that are planned. There are 5 Scrum ceremonies that make up one sprint. They are sprint planning, sprint daily stand-ups, sprint review, sprint retrospective, sprint grooming or backlog refinement. Let's understand each one of them in detail. First one is sprint planning. This meeting or ceremony occurs at the start of the sprint, and as the name suggests, team will pick up the task from the product backlog into the active sprint based on the priority defined by the product owner and the goal defined for that particular sprint. All the tasks are discussed and appropriate story points are assigned to each task, where story points are the unit of measure for expressing estimate of the efforts involved in a particular task. Example of story points below to calculate the efforts on the ticket. 1 story point relates to 1 to 4 hours of work. 2 story point relates to 0.5 to 1 day of effort. 3 story points relates to 1 or 2 days of effort. 5 story points relate to 3 to 4 days of effort. 8 story points relates to 5 to 7 days of effort. 10 story points relates to 8 to 10 days of effort. And any task that has greater than 13 story points need to be broken down into smaller tickets. This meeting can last anywhere between 1 to 2 hours for a 2-week sprint. According to the Scrum Guide, maximum duration for this meeting cannot exceed beyond 8 hours. During this meeting, Scrum team commits for the task they will complete in the sprint and own all the tasks by moving them into active sprint from the product backlog. Product owner task is to prioritize the backlog column before this ceremony starts, with the most critical and urgent task appearing at the top. Second is sprint daily stand-ups or daily scrum. This is a short daily ceremony of 15 minutes that helps team members share progress, unblock each other and sync up on the work. Basically, the following questions are answered by each team member in these calls. What did they do yesterday? What will they do today? Or is anything blocking their progress? Scrum Master keeps a watch on these calls. If any topic leads to a discussion, it's the job of a Scrum Master to cut short that topic and take up in a separate meetings with the necessary stakeholders. Third is sprint review. This meeting is conducted during end of a sprint. The purpose of this meeting is to present the results of the work developers did during the sprint to necessary stakeholders and get their feedback on the work. This meeting is mainly to determine if you have met the sprint goals that were set during the sprint planning meeting. This meeting is also called a sprint demo, as each developer will be demonstrating the work done during the sprint to project stakeholders. Usually, this meeting is planned for 30 to 60 minutes of duration. Fourth is sprint retrospective. This meeting is conducted after the sprint ends. During this ceremony, the Scrum team figures out what they can improve by reviewing how the last sprint went. Main goal of this ceremony is to bring continuous improvement in the process. Here, the process followed in the sprint is discussed and the team puts in their comments on the reflection cards. This ceremony is planned for 30 to 45 minutes. Teams celebrate each other's work and also if anything needs to be improved in future sprints, along with proposing new ideas for improvements. Last one is sprint grooming, that is also called backlog refinement. Product owner will take up the task in backlog and discuss with developers. If additional details are required, product owner adds those details to the task in this meeting and sets the priority of the task. This is an ongoing activity where details like description, acceptance criteria, and estimated efforts, that is story points, are added to each task in backlog. Basically, tasks are made ready to be taken up in the next sprint planning as per project goal. All the doubts of developer with respect to the business requirement are made clear in this ceremony. Unlike the other 4 ceremonies, sprint grooming does not have strictly defined timelines. It is meant to happen continuously throughout the sprint. Mostly, teams do it once per week. You continue doing this until you have enough stories ready for your next sprint. You can also use this meeting's time to break down large bugs into smaller elements that fits into a sprint. To summarize all the sprint ceremonies, we have sprint planning, that is start of the sprint and once per sprint for the duration of 1 or 2 hours and cannot exceed beyond 8 hours. Sprint daily stand-up meeting conducted daily for a duration of 15 minutes throughout the sprint. Sprint end review conducted end of the sprint for the duration of 30 to 60 minutes. Sprint retrospective conducted after the sprint for the duration of 30 to 45 minutes. Sprint grooming or backlog refinement conducted during the sprint depending on the requirements of backlog refinement, normally once per week with no fixed duration. With this, I conclude my today's video. In our next video, we will be discussing what is change management followed in the IT organization. Thank you for your time and I hope I was able to deliver value for your time. If so, support me on this initiative of filling the gaps in knowledge on the practices followed in the IT organizations. Join hands with me in reaching out to as many people as possible who are looking for such information by subscribing to my channel. I will talk to you again in my next video. Until then, take care and keep spreading the joy of giving among people around you. This is Taslim signing off for now.